All right, welcome to this week 14 edition of Ronde and Tiki presented by Superbook. It's a December edition. December football means a little something different, Rondé. It means to me, you either compete for the playoffs or you're starting to figure out where the heck you're going to the offseason.
Well, this year is totally different, man. There's so many teams still in it. Who knows what December is going to be? You know what December means? And I'm so happy and surprised at the same time that we don't have stupid sweaters on yet. Is it time for that yet?
No, is our ugly sweater? That's next week, I think.
Is our producer demanding us put on ugly sweaters yet?
It's only the 6th. It's only December 6th. You got to get at least close to shopping pressure. We're not close to shopping pressure yet. What is December football for you?
Well, you know how I know it's December before I answer that question? Freaking Hallmark's on every single TV in my house, nonstop, all day, every freaking day.
No, thank you.
December football. December football means you must be playing your best ball. And that is exactly what we're not getting in the NFL right now. Normally, the teams that are, gearing up for that playoff run, this is the time where they start playing their best football. And I can unequivocally say we are still getting I'm not going to use mediocre because that's what Tom used. We are getting very average football, parodied football. You just don't know who's going to win any week. Every week, it's the same thing we've been talking about all season long. Good luck calling it.
Well, I think there's also either you come to your mean or you start to excel. And so I think there's only a couple of teams that are really starting to excel and separate themselves. One is the San Francisco 49ers because they played their best ball that we've seen. But a lot of these other teams like Philly, they've been a little skeptical at times, some tight wins. I think Miami's the same way. If you look at who their schedule is, I mean, they had a big win last weekend, but it was the Commanders, right? They haven't beaten a team with a winning record yet, which is nuts to think about. But so where are they really? So the question becomes, who's really elite? Every week it's someone different, right? 2 weeks ago I would have said, oh, it's the Eagles. Yeah, they know how to win. This week I'm like, dude, it's the 49ers. They're the only team that can dominate you, with the snap of the finger. And so December football, as crazy as it sounds, Rondé, is still a lot of teams trying to find their identity. Like, who are you? What are you? What are you going to consistently be?
Well, the ones December to me also, and it's very poignant this year, is who's emerging. The Indianapolis Colts, are they emerging? Seems to be, right? Find a way to win a tough game at the Titans last weekend.
We had that game.
You had that game. That's why I brought it up. Who else is emerging? Is it the Browns under Joe Flacco? Are they going to be a team? He played well. They lost to the Rams, obviously. Or is it the Rams? Because the Rams, were an afterthought, a rebuilding team with a quarterback with a bum elbow and not a lot of talent. And now you have Puka Nacua doing something that only a handful of receivers have done in their rookie year. So, that's what December is. And obviously, we're going to get into this later because playoff picture is not the only real heavy topic of conversation this time of year in December. Speaking of playoffs, I'd be remiss to not ask you about the college football playoff.
Did they get it right?
I went to the ACC championship game. It was a miserable game. It was 3-0 or 3-3 or something at halftime.
3-0 at halftime.
3-0 at halftime. Well, I left because I was like, I can't subject myself to this level of incompetence without, Jordan Travis at quarterback. Florida State would have destroyed them if Jordan Travis would have been there. Louisville's a good team, though. By the way, put up a lot of points all year long, and Florida State's defense, which has won 3 games in a row for them, stymied them, right?
Yeah.
And then not to be rewarded with a spot.
So let's take a quick NFL aside for a second to talk college football playoff. So I watched a lot of this game, but it got to the point where I sent a text to Jesse Palmer and Joe Tessitore, who were doing that game. And I said to them, this is exactly what I said. It's a good thing you guys look sexy because this is a dog, right?
Mhm.
This game was bad. They sent me emojis like, when can we start drinking? So the question is, did Florida State, as an undefeated Power 5 conference champion, get shafted? Because it's written in the bylaws of the college football playoff, it's the best 4 teams, not the most deserving teams, not the conference champions. Because if you were going to say undefeated conference champion, you could say Liberty was just the same. They were 13-0, right?
Not
And
a Power 5 though.
they're not a Power 5, but they went undefeated in their conference and in their schedule. And a lot of people, would make the argument they're not one of the best teams in football, though. So Liberty's not in the conversation. Well, guess what? Neither is Florida State, especially without Jordan Travis. I think the committee got it right because you have games that are going to be compelling. And at the end of the day, as much as we want this to be fair for the college football teams, it's an entertainment product, right? They want to put the most entertaining games. The last thing they want is Michigan playing Florida State and beating them by 40, right? So I think they did it right, and I think the order was right. Michigan weathered it. Washington, despite being a 9-point dog or whatever the heck it was in that Pac-12 championship game, they took care of business. And then Alabama, even though they're flawed as hell,
Right.
they beat a team that hadn't lost in almost 3 years in Georgia. So
I'm not going to agree with you and say they got it right because I think Florida State should have been in the conversation because of the precedent and that a Power 5 team, undefeated, won their conference championship, doesn't go in for the first time. You know why it doesn't matter? Because next year, all that's completely out of the window. There's no precedent to be set because the landscape will be different in 2024. So this would have been a problem, right? If we go into next year and it's still only a 14 playoff, and then this situation comes again, there's precedent, and then all that starts as more, it's ripe for more controversy when another undefeated Power 5 conference champion doesn't get in. And you're like, well, the precedent was set last year with Florida State, so we can omit them, over a Texas team that only has one loss, who beat the team that beat the best team in football. It's like you just don't want to go down those lanes of iterations. You're just like, boom.
Yeah, I almost wanted them to do like an emergency. All right, fuck it, it doesn't matter.
Right,
we're just going to add 2 more teams this year. I almost wanted them to do that. Right? The logistics would have been too hard.
Hey, you know what's going to get very interesting? When Georgia plays Florida State in the Orange Bowl, right? And Florida State beats Georgia.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be some shit out there.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. That's going to even further the debate, but it's already passed, so it doesn't even matter. Just a quick, Rondé, last point on this. Who wins it? Who's playing in the championship game, and who wins it?
Oh, I think. Oh man, see, this is why you're somewhat correct. They got it right. Michigan, Alabama is a great matchup. I think Michigan beats them. Alabama has, you said it, too many flaws. They have a lot of warts that they've been covered up because they are such a talented roster, right? They're able to find ways to win some game, and they shouldn't have beat Auburn. We all know that.
Yeah.
So I think Michigan wins that game. The Texas-Washington game, it's almost as if, how do you bet that game? I mean, obviously we got a month before we really have to start talking about, what that game really looks like. Yeah. But just from a Pac-12 and Big 12 champion, trying to match up, like I wouldn't even know what to say the matchup is.
Yeah, how do you handicap it?
I have no idea how to handicap it.
Here's the only thing that I can put an opinion on this game is Quinn Ewers is a difference maker for the Texas Longhorns. I mean, they're currently laying 4. So Texas -4 against Washington, who is, again, undefeated Pac-12 champion. They took care of the business. They did what they had to do, despite being a dog in the championship game. And it was a close game. It was actually probably one of the better ones that we've seen. But Texas's quarterback, I think he's not coming out this year. At least I don't think he is. But when he does, he's going to be a top 5 pick. Right. So I think he gives them the edge. I see Michigan, Texas, and I just for synergy so he can walk away and be like, screw y'all, I'm going to the league. I think Michigan and Jim Harbaugh win it.
I like your take. I'm gonna have to dig deeper in the coming weeks so I can.
That's just my early take.
Just so I can be properly educated on these matchups. But you know what? Texas Michigan would be a great. It's you know what? I guarantee you that's the one they want.
Yeah.
People are sick of Alabama. They want Texas Michigan. They want new blood. It would be good.
No, agreed.
All right, moving to professional football of the variety that we do know a lot about. NFC East. That Sunday thrashing at the link by the Cowboys over Philly. San Francisco over Philly made me really do a double take on the NFC playoff picture and who the best team is, and whether Brock Purdy is an MVP. That's we're not going to do that conversation right now, but he's definitely. I think his odds actually are highest right now.
Yeah.
He
had that one little blip where he looked human.
Those 3 games where he was actually bad. To be honest with you, but also the 3 games that he played without Deebo Samuel, who had 3 touchdowns in this game, and it's clearly. I think we were saying. I know I was saying it during that time. San Francisco is a different football team without 19. They don't operate the same. So is Purdy the MVP? Probably not in my mind, because it's very dependent on that one player. Because when he was out, they were different. They were a different football team. But to fast forward to where they are now, that to me they look like the best.
If they first of all, their defense is fantastic. But if they have their full complement of offensive talent, because I mean, you mentioned those 3 guys. You know, you mentioned Kittle or Brandon Ayuk. I think these other guys that are stellar football players would be the best offensive talent on almost any other team. And I was watching that game, the Eagles 49ers game, and Kyle Shanahan, he uses McCaffrey and Deebo interchangeably.
Right.
So there was a play where Deebo was lined up side saddle. He just looks like a running back. He's just standing there right next to Brock Purdy as the running back. He's side saddle to the quarterback. And I'm like, where's Christian McCaffrey? He's like out there splitting the slot. He like motions back, that half orbit motion. He motions back into the pistol. So now he's behind Brock Purdy. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And then Deebo Samuel just like does like this jet motion out to the right. And then they run it like a stretch run back to the other side. And I'm just like, I'm watching it and I'm lost. Right. And I'm thinking, how in the world can a defense adjust to all of this motion? Because it's not like you can game plan it and be like, you know what, when Deebo gets in this offset, position, just ignore him. You can't say that, right? You can't say, and if he motions out to the flat, just ignore him. The play's going the other way, right? We've seen it. They're running it the other way. Because what will happen is Brock Purdy will just throw a bubble screen to Deebo Samuel, and he'll get, 40 yards like for a touchdown, like he did late in the game, right? Their offensive construction is spectacular, but it only works because you're right, Rondé, because Deebo Samuel and Chris McCaffrey with the ball in their hands are just special, right? And so that's why Brock Purdy looks amazing, because he throws a 3-yard pass or a behind the line pass and it goes for 50.
Right. That's beside the point, because we were going to talk about Philly here, but to your point, Philly's no longer the best team in football. And
But to your point about their defense, I know you wanted to make a point about their defense. I don't think any defense can stick with what the 49ers are doing. And so I take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But the only thing that's going to come back around, this is likely the NFC Championship game again, right?
No, I'm saying Dallas finds a way to get it.
Really?
Dallas puts up a lot of points. Look, the Eagles can't afford to not be their best selves, because when they're not, they struggle. They've only had 2 comfortable wins all year. Philadelphia. They destroyed the Bucks on Monday Night Football, where I got where I got my ring of excellence. The only good thing that happened that day, and they beat the Rams. Other than that, they are a different team when they don't have the lead. They don't look like a team that can compete with San Francisco at times, right? And we know what Dallas is. I mean, Dallas had a great win this past week against Seattle. I mean, Seattle, nice effort, Seattle, but Dallas is by far the better team, and it makes you reconsider whether or not Dak Prescott's an MVP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Their defense got picked apart, but they made plays when it mattered. Like, I bring this up because this is, to me, the best game of the week in Week 14. Eagles at Cowboys. Cowboys 3.5-point favorites. Dak Prescott, last 2 months, can you agree? Best quarterback in football?
He's been the best quarterback. What's his touchdown interception ratio? 20-2 or something like that?
Yes.
It's something ridiculous. He's been amazing. And I said this last week, and I'll have to keep saying it going forward. I was not a Dak Prescott believer, and therefore I was not a Cowboys believer.
Right.
But he's forced you to accept that they're one of the best teams. They're one of the elite teams in the NFL. I'm not saying they're the best teams. I think that's the 49ers. But it's interesting how this is. He's forced the shift, because for most of this season, all we've talked about is the AFC, the AFC, the AFC. AFC's got the power teams. AFC's got the best quarterbacks. Not anymore. No, the NFC has the better quarterbacks right now. Brock Purdy, because of the scheme, call it whatever it is. Right? It is what it is. Just like with Mike McDaniel, when someone asked him if Tua Tagovailoa is a system quarterback, he's like, who cares, right? He does what we ask him to do, and he's damn good at it.
Right.
Brock Purdy, is he a system quarterback? Who cares? He does what they ask him to do exceptionally well. And Dak Prescott has evolved. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is great as well. I think the power has slowly shifted to those top three teams in the NFC away from the AFC, and a lot of it is led by Dak because of what the Cowboys have been able to do. And at home, Rondé, they are ridiculous.
Right. Well, so, I think Dak is really finally adapted. Maybe it's Mike McCarthy who's adapted to Dak.
I think it's more that.
Yeah, and really understanding how he best operates, and not trying to force him to, run his offense by doing what Dak does best. I mean, Dak might be one of the best deep ball throwers in football right now. I mean, obviously it helps when you have CeeDee Lamb. He's freaking ridiculous,
right?
Uncoverable at times, but so all the ball has to do is come out on time and find its target.
Yep.
But you still have to do that. And I think he might be one of the top 10 in the league with completions plus 15 yards down the field.
Yep.
Like, to me, that defines that difference maker at quarterback, and he does it better than anybody in the league. I mean, you can't say that about Brock Purdy. I mean, obviously, he's very good at what he does, right? You could say it about Tua, but Tua also has, the likely runner-up.
Yeah, or MVP. Definitely the offensive player of the year.
Right, Tyreek Hill. So to me, it's Dak. I mean, Dak's making Ferguson, the tight end, who was kind of a non-story at the beginning of the year. I know he's a draft pick and he's young. He's making him look like an all-pro tight end all of a sudden. So, like, that, to me, when I look at the matchup that we're trying to talk about here, Philly at Dallas, Philly's defense cannot handle that.
They can't stop it.
They don't have enough. What they once had last year, because remember, it was a strength of their team last year. Philly's defense, all you could talk about: pass rush, coverage in the secondary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They lost just a couple of players, a linebacker, both safeties, and now it's a completely different defense. Right. And they're still one of the worst in football. And I see 3.5 points here, Dallas at home, probably not enough.
No, I agree with you, Ronnie. I would take Dallas in this regard. Don't forget they lost Diggs as well for the season. With his injury. Listen to the points that they've scored at home. All wins, by the way. 30, 38.
You're talking Dallas here.
Dallas Cowboys at home. They dominate people at home. 30, 38, 43 against the Rams. The Giants again, 49. Commanders, 45. Seattle, 41. Now, good. Some of those teams just aren't good, but they still dominate people at home. And with the Eagles a little bit wary on the defensive side of the ball, without a doubt, it's a Cowboys laying 3.5 easy bet if you wanted to take that one for sure. And I certainly would go the over.
There's going to be a whole hell of a lot of Eagles fans take the 150 on the money line. So
of course, because they got to believe, even if it's blindly, believe in your team. All right, we'll come back after this break, and you care, Rondé. At least you say you do. I'm interested to see what you mean. Pro and college football, basketball, hockey, it's all happening right now, and there's no better place to wager on it all than Superbook Sports. When you sign up, deposit, and wager in the same day, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250. Plus, Superbook Sports gives you the chance to compete against Vegas. They don't have ridiculous computer formulas making the odds. It's just a team of the world's best odds makers on site in Las Vegas. When the sports world is busy, it's time to get busy winning some money. So download the Superbook Sports app today or visit superbook.com to wager and win today. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back. Ronde and Tiki presented by Superbook. Segment 2, which means it's Rondé's segment. And I labeled this one, I kid only because I care. And I know you have the Los Angeles Chargers game this weekend, Tiki, so you can't talk about it. But if there was ever a coach that was going to get fired after a win, it would be Brandon Staley last week.
Dude, that was one of the hardest games to watch.
0 victory at New England. New England becomes the first team, I think, in history to give up less than 10 points on defense and lose.
10 or less. 10 or less. 3 weeks in a row. 3 weeks in a row. 10 or less. And they've lost all those games.
They've lost. They you talk about mediocrity again. This is it. Yet the Chargers, and you'll be able to digest this or dissect this in your game this week, still in the playoff conversation. So it gives us a chance, Tiki, to revisit the mediocrity. 20 of 32 teams have a record below 500.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. No. 20 of the 32 are 500 or below.
500 below. Yeah, 500 or below. So, but yeah, that's below 500. There's only 12 winning teams in the NFL.
Yeah, which is crazy. And by the way, I have that Chargers game, but I obviously had to watch the New England Patriots game. Like my eyes had to stay open to look at this thing. But it's indicative because I went back and I watched the Ravens game, the Chargers Ravens game. They have a lot of talent. I mean, Keenan Allen's got 138 targets already. He's 102 catches. He's over 1,000 yards.
He's on defense. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. He's not Tyreek Hill, but he's a really good wide receiver. Austin Eckler's a good runner, but he's got less than 500 yards on the season right now. Something seems like stuck in the gears with the LA Chargers. And I know that Justin Herbert has this perception that he's this elite developing quarterback, but we don't see it on film, right?
He's paid like he is.
No, I know he is, but he doesn't you don't see him making, this big dig or this, massive overthrow. You don't see him, not overthrow, but like a deep over knocking that throw in. You don't see him taking shots. It's a lot of dink. Here comes a crosser, dunk. Oh wait, Gerald Everett, snuck behind the linebacker. I want to throw that for a 9-yard gain. You don't see any explosion in their offense. I mean, they had one, but it was to a tight end. The kid's smart, and it just kind of got lost in the secondary. But they don't do a lot of things that seemingly would take advantage. And it's why these games that they're in, they're always tight, right? They're always down to one possession, and it's always all right. You got to convert on 4th down, otherwise you're not going to get in. And they don't do it. Right. And so this is why Brandon Staley has gotten so much heat for a lot of the season. It's almost like they're holding back on the potential, if that makes sense.
Right. I think that's largely because they don't have any receiving talent outside of Keenan Allen. Mike Williams is hurt. Johnston, the rookie, is just on a struggle bus, can't catch wide open passes. You have good tight ends, but the offense is really – Kellen Moore's offense isn't designed to be a tight end friendly offense.
No, they dress 4, Rondé.
I know, but it's like they have to now. They don't have any other choice. So, Justin Herbert is, got 20 touchdown passes on the year, Deke. He's not like he's playing badly.
No, of course not. I'm not saying that at all.
Right. He's just not the guy that looks like one of the highest paid quarterbacks in football. They're not even asking him to do that.
Yeah.
And doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but doesn't make a lot of game-changing type plays. That's when I watch them, and I haven't watched them a lot because they're just hard to watch. He's one of the, he's not heavily sacked. He makes good decisions mostly, gets the ball out of his hands most of the time. They're just not an explosive offense anymore. And I think that's largely because of the talent gap that the Chargers have on having their roster. And there's no fixing that, right? There's no fixing what they don't have. You just can't make those additions at this point in the year to give you an explosive downfield target. And it's unfortunate, but that's just who they are. I mean, the real question is, though, Brandon Staley's been here for what, 4 years now?
Mm-hmm.
And they continue to underachieve. And at some point, you just start asking yourself,
right,
is there a better option?
Yeah.
I mean, there's those 20 teams that we talked about, 500 or below. Probably half of those are thinking the same thing about their situation at head coach. And I don't know if that decision happens this year, if it happens next year, but something's got to give on that football team.
I mean, you go look at the rankings because, like, it's the easiest way to look and see what a team has done. So his first year as a head coach, and again, he's a defensive-minded head coach. They were top 10 offense, top 5 offense, actually. So It's like, all right, they look okay. Right, this is back. Tyrod Taylor was the backup quarterback, and Justin Herbert, that was a whole punctured lung thing, and it felt like this Brandon Staley era got off to a fast start. But what he's been known for, you're not seeing. Right, he's never been a top 15 defense. Right, it's never been dominant. They have good players over there. I'm not knocking it, but it seems like something's not translating. Now maybe it's the market. Maybe it's the
being second fiddle in LA.
Yeah, maybe it's some of that. Maybe some of that stuff. I'm being honest.
No,
honestly, the LA Rams sold out. Right, you give Les Snead credit. They sold out to win a championship. Why? Because the disposable dollar in Los Angeles will be spent somewhere else unless you're good. Right? They're not going to be like, we're an okay product. Yeah, they're not going to come. I mean, seriously. You remember the word around the Chargers when they were in that soccer stadium? It was like it was more of the other team, right? It was never a home field advantage, and so I think they're struggling a little bit to grab a foothold. But the only way they're going to get it is if they win. And if they're exciting. And what I was alluding to before is that if you go to a game, it's not exciting, right? You're not, it's not like, I gotta go see Justin Herbert do X. Like, you're not seeing that. Right. And so I think it makes it a hard sell for this team. And I feel like it's permeated into the locker room, the organization. There's something that's failing to ignite, I think, with the Chargers right now.
Well, they are definitely one of the more, I guess, baffling teams because they should be better. Just roster-wise, experience-wise, with the coaching staff and the players that they do have available to them, they should be better, right? And there's only one. That only comes down to one thing in my mind. That's coaching. Yeah. Right? It's the direction of your team. It's how you're getting guys ready to play, like making sure all of them understand the whys of we're doing every single snap. Like, why are we doing this? I mean, they're still the worst defense in football.
Yeah.
Talk about Brandon Staley all you want. And so I keep bringing them up because they're the worst statistical defense in football from a defensive head coach's perspective. That just can't happen.
No, it can't happen. It's interesting because his records haven't been bad. 9-8, 10-7, right? They've won. And so is he on the hot seat? I don't think so, but it just feels like they're underachieving. And so unless something spectacular happens this year, I think he's going to continue to be in that conversation, even if it's unfair. I'm going to put that in quotes, that he's on the hot seat. But the reality is, Rondé, he is right there with so many of these other teams. The average
conversation, right?
Yeah, the averageness of the NFL. It's like, who's getting the 6th and 7th seeds? Who are going to be the wild card teams?
Hell, NFC, who's getting the 5th seed? Like 2 weeks ago, we talked about the NFC playoff also rants, the guys that aren't the top teams, right? Yeah. So now we got to talk about the AFC. So Buffalo definitely in the conversation, sitting second in the AFC East at 6-6. That's one of your 500 teams right there. The entire in an AFC North and the AFC South are still in the conversation, minus Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So 7 of the 8 teams in the North and the South, plus I'm going to say Denver at 6-6. So in your mind, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, the NFC. Now we're talking the AFC. What of those? What?
I mean, it's half the team. It's half the team.
Those 9 teams have the best chance to be the 5 through 7 seeds. If you ask me, I'm going to say it's either going to be one of Pittsburgh or Cleveland, depending on the quarterback situations, and that's we talked about in a second, and one of either Indy or Houston.
So I think Cleveland's got a quarterback problem right now, right? With Watson out, and Joe Flacco is now their starter, who is going to be the 4th starter for them this year. So I'm going to say Cleveland's going to fade. So I just can't help believe that Mike Tomlin's going to have another, above 500 record, and in the AFC, that's getting you in the playoffs.
Right.
Like 9-8 is going to get you into the playoffs. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh, Indy, and it's a hard one.
Yeah, Houston, Denver.
So it's between Houston and Denver. So and Denver is, and I have them this week, right? It's been a little bit of smoke and mirrors because Russ isn't playing world-beating football. Russell Wilson, he's not, but he's actually acknowledged that he's not, the next coming of Peyton Manning or whatever, like this aged vet who's going to become this MVP candidate. That's not. He's recognized that, so he's running more. Like he's pulling the ball down and just picking up 5 yards. He doesn't have the arm. There was a go route that he had to. I forget which one of his wide receivers it was, but he launched it. It was short, right? He just doesn't have it anymore. So, but he can still win because their defense has started to play a little bit better now that they've gotten healthy. Justin Simmons and those guys are back. But I'm going to say it's Houston. To me, the last one is going to be Houston. Pittsburgh, Indy, and Houston feel like the ones that are gonna slide their way in, and that's gonna lead to the next part of this, Rondé. After you give your question, your answer to this is who is the best backup quarterback? Because the reason I think Indy is in it is because of Gardner Minshew.
Right. We didn't even really talk about Cincinnati here because Jake Browning's 350 yards last week was a shocker. Jacksonville, I thought was going to cruise in this game, give themselves, a 2-game lead over Indy and Houston in the AFC South. And you're sitting here saying Jake Browning just beat the best team in the AFC South.
Yeah.
So Cincy, are they out of it?
Well, you got to acknowledge that the Jacksonville Jaguars, the one weakness has been their pass defense.
Right.
It's been their weakness.
And they lost their quarterback in that game. Right. So for how long? We don't yet know. I do agree with you though, T. Pittsburgh, I mean, even with Mitch Trubisky having to play with Pickett out for who knows how long, probably the rest of the regular season with the high ankle sprain surgery, which is rare
for a rope tie, whatever they call it.
Yeah, for a player. Yeah, for a player to get a high ankle sprain surgery. I mean, I know it helps you come back faster, but it's at least a month injury. So I mean, they play. Who do they play this week? They play New England this week at home. So
favorable schedule.
Favorable schedule for Pittsburgh makes them in there. But to me, I mean, Houston. Somehow it feels like they're going to be a double-digit win team this year. And if they are, DeMeco Ryans is probably coach of the year. Agreed. But I see them in this mix. The caveat is, I think what you're saying is who are the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's the question.
Give me your top two, and give me your bottom two. Let's start with the bottom two. The bottom two are kind of easy.
Right. Whoever's playing quarterback for the Jets, whoever that is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, who's now cut, Trevor Siemian, or Brett Rippon.
Right. Yeah, they got 4 bad backup quarterbacks. It makes you. I mean, obviously. So before we completely thrash these quarterbacks, the problem with the Jets is the same problem that we talked about at the beginning of the season. If you're starting quarterback for the Jets and you're trying to run Nathaniel Hackett's offense, and you don't have any time to make any decision when you drop back, whose fault is it?
Right. Is it Nate's fault, or is it the offensive line's fault?
Offensive line that would be giving Aaron Rodgers no help if he was starting a quarterback right now. Right. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that if that one guy, that one position, if Aaron was playing quarterback, if he wouldn't be
It wouldn't be any better, Rondé.
without the Achilles injury.
It would not be any better.
It wouldn't be any better. I totally agree.
Offensive line is a disaster.
Right. Worst, I don't know. Whichever guy was playing in Cleveland, I don't know.
PJ Walker.
PJ Walker.
Right. You know what? I'm gonna put Zach as the worst because there's a report that came out in New York just a couple of days ago, and I railed on it. It can't be true, but I know it's not completely false. Let's put it that way. That he didn't want to play. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, man. That
makes him worst on my list.
That's bad ball.
The best.
You know who I'm going with DeVito, man.
Tommy Cutlets.
I'm only kidding. The best backup quarterback in football is Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, no doubt.
I watched obviously all that Tampa game because I had to, and some of the throws, he had a throw in a window that was about that wide, through down at the goal line in that Tampa game. I'm like, why did he throw that? And it was a completion, it was a touchdown. I was like, I see why he do that. The guy exudes confidence in himself, and it spills over to his football team. Because I don't think they're overly talented team, yet they sit at 7-5 and look like one of the hottest teams in football right now. They've won 4 in a row. I think they have the longest win streak in the AFC and tied for the second longest win streak in football right now. So it's him. It's him.
Well, it's Gardner because he'll make the play when you need it most. So they have some good talent in the wide receiver room. We talked about it because we had that game last week, and the one guy who was like struggling to get going was Alec Pierce because he can run one route.
Yeah,
and that's a go, right? As long as you don't let him get past you, whether you're playing, if you're playing a one high look, whether that's 3 or 1. Just don't let him get on your hip because you're beat, right? Yeah. That's what he does. And he's a great adjuster to the ball. Last week, the Tennessee Titans let that happen twice. And guess what? He got 2 touchdowns or 2 game-changing plays. The second one wasn't a touchdown, but it was a bomb.
Got in position to give the touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's Gardner. Gardner will dink and dunk you. He'll make the right decision. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. In the 3-game losing streak that they had, he was all over the place. 9 turnovers he counted for. But in this 4-game winning streak, I think he's only had 1 or 2. And I don't even think they were his fault. But he's turned into this guy that's a great leader because he's just chill as hell. He's just kind of just kind of doing.
Did you see his post-game locker?
I did. But he's so chill. And so he never panics. Right. And when the time comes, push comes to shove, and that deep throw to Alec Pierce, he kind of just looks it off, goes back, lets it go. I mean, it was beautiful.
Where do we stand?
Where
do we stand on Josh Dobbs in this conversation? Then we can go to break.
Josh Dobbs.
We hated him last week. They had a bye week. See if he comes back as a starter this week.
Is he going to start this week? You know what? If he starts this week, I'll say he's the guy.
All right, I love it.
But if not, he's on the bottom end.
You had Jake Browning in this conversation. What's wrong with you? He's had 1 game in his career.
Jake Browning. I just had to, I give him some love. It's the 30th ranked pass defense in football. He did what he was supposed to do, looking all smug on the sideline. Win a trip to the biggest football game of the year, courtesy of Superbook Sports. Superbook will fly you and a friend to Las Vegas for February's championship game. They'll also give you 2 tickets to the game plus a 3-night hotel stay. All you have to do is place a $25 same game parlay between now and January 7th. That's a little over a month, and you're automatically entered to win. So wager and win a trip to Las Vegas, courtesy of Superbook Sports. That's a super trip, by the way. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the last segment here, Ronde and Tiki Barber, presented by Superbook Sports. Do we say Ronde and Tiki Barber, or is it just Ronde and Tiki?
I think we're one name people, dude. Ronde and Tiki.
Okay. Ronde and Tiki, presented by Superbook Sports. Ask me, Ronde, since you are the defensive-minded twin. D'Amico Ryans is having a heck of a season. Not only is he an African-American, or black is what we call now. He is a black young head coach, but he's also defensive minded. All of the young coaches that we've seen recently have kind of been offensive minded, at least the ones that have had success. So is he changing the mold? And if he is, who's next?
Right. So great question, because I think there has to be a balance between these hot young gurus on offense and the kind of the change your mindset guys on defense. And that's exactly what D'Amico Ryans is. Now, you could come in and say he's the defensive minded head coach all you want, but their defense right now is really kind of middle of the pack.
Yeah.
It's the reason why they're having success is because of his offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowick, who he brought with him from San Francisco, who has a track record of developing young quarterbacks. And he's implemented his system, Slowick's system, which obviously now is going to put him into that conversation of the new hot offensive coordinator guru.
Yeah, they're going to lose him in 2 years.
Right. They're going to lose him in a couple of years. Hopefully he's mentoring a backup to take his job. But I think, yes, if you're a defensive-minded head coach and you have a guy like Slowick that can come in, work with the young quarterback, because usually if you're taking a job, you're going to a situation where your quarterback is not great, right? So you have to develop that guy. How has he developed C.J. Stroud? He's the number one passer in football in terms of yards. They've got the sixth most yards in the NFL in terms of production on total. So yes, if you find the right guy to come with you, a defensive-minded head coach can succeed, and he's proven this. I think he's going to be a 10-win guy. He's going to be defensive. He's going to be coach of the year in 2023 if the Houston Texans make the playoffs. So yes. So the second part of your question: is there another guy out there? Absolutely. I think Morris, who was my head coach in Tampa, gets another shot.
By the way, he had offensive experience in Atlanta. He coached the wide receivers in Atlanta.
Coached the wide receivers. Well, he did that so he could obviously boost his resume to try to become a head coach. Another guy whose name keeps popping up, and unfortunately, he's been in a terrible situation 2 years in a row, because Gerald Everett was the defensive coordinator in Denver last year, and his defense was great. Obviously, the team was awful. Fired Nate Hackett midseason. He goes to Carolina. His defense is actually playing pretty good in Carolina, and they fired their head coach midseason. So his name probably won't be bounced around. He's only been a coordinator for 2 years, but he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. But to answer this question fully and finish it off here, yes, they can succeed, but you better have one of these guys, these young coordinators on offense to come with you, because your situation is not going to be good.
Yeah.
Right. And that has to be the reason you succeed, is because of the position that you're not coaching.
Yeah. No, it's interesting you say that, because Bobby Slowick, he was in San Francisco with D'Amico Ryans as an offensive assistant, and then the offensive pass game coordinator. I think we just had their game, so I'm forgetting what his title was in San Francisco. But he worked with Trey Lance, and then he worked with Brock Purdy. And so think of the sequence: Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, C.J. Stroud. So 3 years in a row, you kind of you learn what works and what doesn't to get these young players up to snuff. And he brought them with him. So in some ways, you might have to look at the good offensive teams and look at their defensive coordinators, because their defensive coordinators, when they leave, they're going to hire with them or bring with them,
right?
Like not the offensive coordinator, but the pass game associate or the quarterback coach or whoever it may be. That might be how you have to find, if you want defense to be, the lead, that might be how you have to find that next guy.
All right. Interesting question for Tiki Barber here. So Jacksonville, before the Trevor Lawrence high ankle sprain, was going to be a 3-point favorite on the road at Cleveland. Houston is on the road as a favorite, 5.5 to the New York Jets. Indy is a 1-point favorite on the road at Cincinnati. So the AFC South, we talked about it earlier in the show, completely up in the air. 2 of the 3 are road favorites. And obviously the quarterback situation matters in the other one. I think if Trevor Lawrence was playing, this +3 to Jacksonville would be -3 to Jacksonville. So which of these games do you like best? I don't think any of them are really sexy, but it's going to be, I want to hear your take on the NFC South. Which one of these teams is going to be the best one to kind of bet on this week?
Yeah, the AFC South. You said NFC, but AFC.
You know what I meant.
Yeah, I know what you meant. So Jacksonville, Cleveland, it's backup quarterbacks. And I mean, I guess if I had to watch it, do I have Cleveland or Jacksonville coming up? No, so I'm not watching that game. Zero interest. The New York Jets and the Houston Texans. I mean, I gotta watch it because we talk about it on WFAN, Evan and Tiki, 2 to 6:30 daily.
Shameless plug.
But I'm only gonna watch it because I like to watch CJ Stroud.
Right.
The game to watch is Indy in Cincinnati, because we talked about Jake Browning briefly. He had a huge day against the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's at home. He's going to feel comfortable. More than anything, he's going to have confidence. But the Indianapolis Colts are a team that they were out of it. Nobody had them. So this is the most interesting one for me. They were out of it. They were not in the conversation to make the postseason. It was all right. Shane Steichen, who's an odd dude but awesome. You know what I mean? Right. He's kind of right in that mold that you saw with Nick Sirianni with the Philadelphia Eagles, and where he was last year. Like, he doesn't care that he's not like your typical head coach. Oh, I'm gonna be blah blah. Like, he doesn't care. Like, he's just himself, and he's fun. And I think his guys respond to him, including his quarterback Gardner Minshew, who we talked about. The reason I like Indy going forward is even though they lost Jonathan Taylor, their run game is consistent with Zach Moss, who's gotten the opportunity.
Yeah, it was that way before Jonathan even came back.
Dude, I mean, he rushed for 100 yards twice. He was averaging like 110 yards before Jonathan Taylor came back, and his carries fell down. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Michael Pittman Jr., he's good. Alec Pierce, we talked about. Josh Downs, who was a rookie, little slot guy. They have talent, and defensively, they're smart, right? They're one of the teams, Rondé, that when you talk about linebackers not keeping pace with the evolution of the running back, their team has actually done that, right? They're guys from Zaire Franklin to EJ Speed. They've been able to mitigate the running back advantage. So I like Indy here, even though they're on the road against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati had a big win. That's the most interesting game, and I think it's the one that's most compelling because of what Indy has surprisingly done for a lot of this season.
Yeah, one point right now to Indy, 150 minus 115 to Indy on the money line, minus 105 to Cincy money line. All right, Tiki. Thursday night football, New England at Pitt. Pitt 6-point favorites. Monday night football, Tennessee at Miami, 13.5 to Miami. Talk about dud games in prime time. So we're not talking about
how is Pittsburgh only getting 6?
When was the last time you saw $1,000 on the money line? That's what Miami had.
Yeah, you're gonna lay 1,000 to win 100. You're gonna lay $1,000 to win 100. No, thank you.
All right, a couple games of the week for us. Tampa at Atlanta, and the only reason I'm doing this because it gives us a chance to talk about the only guy in this category, Mike Evans, 10 years straight, 1,000 yards to start his career. Only one other guy in history has more than 10 years consecutive with 1,000 yards receiving, and that is the one and only Jerry Rice, who did not do it to start his career.
Right,
Mike Evans. But to talk this game, the South is it's as it was last year. It's a division of futility. 5-6 or 5-7 and 6-6 are leading this division, and neither team is great. Atlanta is finding ways to beat bad teams. Right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to tell you what they really do well because they don't do anything really well on either side of the ball. Desmond Ridder is clearly not good enough. I mean, they'll be making a decision at quarterback next year for sure. And the same could be said about the Bucks. Baker's playing well, right? But he's playing winning ball. Canales, the offensive coordinator, first-year coordinator, starting to figure things out. But their defense nearly lost to Bryce Young last week. Both their middle linebackers are out. They don't inspire. This is going to be who's going to be the winner. But this game is important. Atlanta's minus 2.5 at home. Tampa's plus 120 on the money line. And if it's me, without being homer, I'm just going to say Tampa's going to win this football game.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. But, I mean, I almost can't because of how it feels like Tampa just finds ways to lose. Like Baker, we knew this team was a rebuilding team in a sense. You don't have Baker Mayfield as your starting quarterback and you're saying, we're winning the Super Bowl. You're saying Baker's a good player. I think he's a good leader. He's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He can throw any ball, right? He's got that like moxie, that attitude. But this defense, which was once fantastic, is flawed now, right? You just see it. And I can't put my finger on it, right? But it's flawed. The guy's Carlton Davis, I thought was going to be an elite player for a lot of years. Sometimes he's there, sometimes he's not. It's almost like there's a laissez-fairness going on with them. And so I hear you. To me, my gut says Tampa's winning, but I just can't trust them. So Atlanta at home, and this is for the division, right? This is basically for the playoffs, right? This mediocre division, somebody's got to win it, and therefore somebody's going to go to the playoffs. Last year, it was a sub 500 team that went to the playoffs. I got to take Atlanta here, laying 2.5 at home. This feels like a field goal game either way, so I'm going to go with the home team.
And that's exactly what it was earlier in the year. Kicked the game-winning field goal at Tampa, which was another just game. Jesus, ugly. All right, other game, last game we're going to talk about. Buffalo at Kansas City. I think when we marked this on our calendars earlier in the year, we thought this was going to be a great matchup, but neither team is as good as we want to believe they should be. And it's week 14, so this is who they are. There's no reason to pretending like both of these teams are elite teams anymore, because they're not. Buffalo has lost 3 or 4. The one win was the Jets, coming off a bye week. Kansas City couldn't get it done at Green Bay the other night, which was actually a really good football game. If you didn't watch that game Sunday night,
Green Bay's coming around, man. Right. If they play great against the Giants on Monday night, we're going to have to put them into this conversation.
Yeah, we'll start talking. So Kansas City has lost 3 out of 5 after winning 6 straight from week 2 on. Both offenses, I found this interesting when I was kind of getting ready for this. Both offenses are top 10 in yards, which doesn't really seem like Kansas City's putting up that many yards, but they are. And Buffalo makes so many mistakes. It doesn't feel like they're putting up that many yards, but they are. But both teams have 20 giveaways this year.
Right.
So as I look at this game, -2.5 to Kansas City, over/under 47.5. That's probably a good bet, to be honest with you. It's the team that makes the least amount of mistakes that's going to win this football
And so
game.
Who do you trust to make the least amount of mistakes? Is it the team that has no receiving targets other than your tight end, Travis Kelce, and a rookie, Rashee Rice, or Isaiah Pacheco, right? And it's like 28 or 30 something target or catches for those guys. We're 12 games into the season. I just don't think that the explosiveness that we come to expect from Kansas City is there anymore. Their defense has been playing great. We talk about it every time. Like, why are they even in some of these games? It's because their defense has been phenomenal. But for me, I don't trust Josh yet. I know that, Brady has changed the philosophy or the mindset, the quarterback room, the offensive room, whatever. It's changed, but I haven't seen it, right? The one win you mentioned, Rondé, was against the Jets. And we know where the Jets are. The Jets can't score. All you got to do is not screw it up against the Jets. You're going to beat them. And so the losing streak is real for the Buffalo Bills. And I think they're waffling from a confidence standpoint if you really want to dig into it. And so I like Kansas City in this game only because it's going to be a coaching battle. So they're laying 2.5 at home. I would take, again, similar. This feels like a field goal game, just like the Buccaneers and the Falcons. So I'm going to take the home team getting a field goal, a little less than a field goal.
I am tending to agree with you. Kansas City at home, coming off a loss, a game that they felt like they could have won. Yep. Obviously, Jordan Love is turning into maybe the answer at Green Bay. So he outplayed, literally outplayed.
Matt LaFleur might actually be a really good coach.
Right. Yeah. He outplayed, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, and I think they have to answer that. And I think they will answer that at home, because at Buffalo, so to answer the question that I asked myself at the beginning, Buffalo is the team I trust the least, because I just see too many mistakes. They press when they get in tight situations. I mean, they lost a tough game to Philly, but they should have beat Philly, and they weren't able to 2 weeks ago before their bye. So I'm with you. 2.5 Kansas City. I'm on it.
Cool. All right. I am in Los Angeles for the Chargers and the Denver Broncos this week. Can't wait to talk to Sean Payton to see how he put together that 4-game or 5-game win streak and then let it all go away because Russ threw 3 interceptions. Exactly. Exactly. Have a good weekend, brother. I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.
The Ronde and Tiki podcast is produced by Superbook Sports. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Colorado, Maryland, Nevada, New Jersey, Ohio, and Tennessee. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF or visit 800betsoff.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342.